We are live. Welcome to the Devils and God's Country. I am one of your hosts, Casper Rigsby. Our normal co-host, Allie Jackson, cannot be here tonight due to some scheduling conflicts. So we have some special guests for you tonight. We have Rob Moore and Sean Frenick of Mythicist Milwaukee, and we are going to discuss mythicism tonight. Not just in relation to Jesus, and the mythicism surrounding that, and I know that's what most people focus on, but mythicism in general, and why it's not taken as seriously as we all think it should. I personally am a mythicist. I know Sean and Rob are both mythicists, and they run a wonderful Facebook page, Mythicist Milwaukee. They have a podcast, and they do a video series called Holy Shit. You guys should definitely check that out. Holy Shit is an amazing series and very fun to watch. So definitely check these guys out and check out what they're doing. They're wonderful, wonderful guys, and what they're doing is incredible for the atheist community and those of us who are mythicists and who want to spread the word about what mythicism is and why it's an important topic. So I'll let Sean or Rob, whichever one of y'all wants to speak first, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Mythicist Milwaukee and what you guys do and what you guys are about.
Go for it, Rob.
Go ahead, Sean.
Rob, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Take it. Go for it.
All right. We're Mythicist Milwaukee. We're three or 4 years old now at the most, and we kind of all came together, looking for each other in a secular void here in Milwaukee, and Sean and Antonio had a real vision for mythicism. Myself was looking for atheist community and just anywhere to start with secular activism in Milwaukee, and we all kind of found each other, and the team took shape after that, and now we've got a bunch of pieces in place that really fit well together, and we're working on a lot of initiatives, as you know. We've already done really cool stuff with conferences, and the podcast has been amazing, and looking forward to movie projects and a debate series that'll really, I think, bring mythicism to the fore, especially here in Milwaukee, where it's sadly been lacking, along with the rest of the elements of the secular community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the debates, you guys are supposed to have a really awesome debate coming up with oh damn, I can't think of his name right now. I'm a little too too far
Well, we
gone.
have two debates coming up. Actually, we have well, for just a little background on that. As Rob said, in Milwaukee, the secular foundation really wasn't there. So we really tried, we came together and we're trying to put on things that people would be interested in. And so, we had conferences. We actually brought in the Wu-Tang Clan to speak. Casper, you were there at that conference. Actually, those were the first ever secular conferences in Milwaukee. So for those that know how old Milwaukee is, it's kind of embarrassing a little bit. But so we started doing that, and then through that venture, we had somebody come on board that was interested in doing a debate series, and so in 2016 we're going to do pretty much the first ever secular/theist debate series in Milwaukee. So the first debate that we got funded for is going to be Dr. Richard Carrier will be debating Justin Bass on the Gospels and whether or not there's evidence for the supernatural resurrection of Jesus. And then the big one that we're really excited we got funded for, this debate it's had many Kickstarters, they've all failed. So we got very lucky to get the funding for this, but it's going to be Bart Ehrman debating Dr. Robert Price on whether or not Jesus existed. And there's a lot of people out there that have been waiting to see this, so really excited about that. And that's going to be October 2016. The first one will be in March in 2016. They're both in Milwaukee, so.
Yeah, and that Airman debate is the one I was thinking of, and that's one I'm really excited about myself, because I would like to see Airman actually give some input on his standpoint, because his last book, honestly, a lot of us that have read his last book said that it's really a good case for mythicism. Honestly, he doesn't make a good case for a historical Jesus, and when you read that book and you look at his position in general, it seems to offer a lot of credence to the mythicist position, because he's stuck with having to deal with the Gospels as a source of his information, and there's no outside sources that he can really reference, and that's troubling. That's troubling to every one of us who delves into mythicism. So I'm really excited about that, and it was so great to be invited to y'all's conference. I just want to say it was an incredible experience for me, and for anyone else who wants to enjoy a nice secular conference, and especially involving mythicism, definitely check out these conferences that Mythicist Milwaukee is putting on, because they're great events. Mendisa Thomas was there at the last event, and she for the Black non-believers, it was an incredible experience to hear her speak. And then like you said, Akilla Priest from Wu-Tang was there, and that was just it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, we loved having you, man. It was really cool that you were there. And yeah, and that's one of the things, like, you know, when you have, I know the topic of this show is mythicism, but the problem with that is kind of like anything else in religious studies, there's many different angles to mythicism, the mythicist position, the arguments that exist, and we like to delve in all of them. Now, you were pointing out with the problem with Ehrman's argument. You're pretty much spot on. You know, when I first got into this and I first started, you know, researching the various scholars, I thought Ehrman was a mythicist. Like, I'm like sitting, I'm like just reading online, and I'm reading Ehrman. I'm like, oh wow, this guy's making a great case, you know, against the case for Jesus. And then, you know, I started learning more and more and more, and I realized, oh wait, this guy is the person that essentially defends the historicity. So it's interesting. So the way he does it is very interesting, because he really pulls back the veil and showcases all the problems in the Gospels, as far as them contradicting one another, the historical records that we have, you know, just, you know, who Jesus was, what he did, you know, him not possibly being able to do everything that he said and did, and, you know, to how did he actually die, where was he born, so he really does a good job at like kind of showcasing these problems, and he blames them on the Gospels. But then he, unfortunately, is in the position where he has to come back a little bit and state, well, the Gospels are bad sources, but they're not that bad, and that's why we can rely on them. You know, so he's really in an interesting situation. So it's really going to be good to see Dr. Robert Price debate him, because when you hear on the mythicist camp, people will cite Price, and then you hear on the historicity camp, people cite Ehrman. So, you know, this debate alone, the price tag on it's over 20 grand, just to get it done. So yeah, we're really, really excited about this one.
I'm waiting for anyone to come up with any kind of case for a historical Jesus. It seems more than obvious to me. And when you talked about why doesn't mythicism get the credit it deserves, there's a lot of reasons for that, and we can talk more about that. But I'm still stunned that, like, there's anybody anywhere that bothers sticking, like you guys just said. Ehrman, you read, he's a mythicist, except
when it comes to the gospel.
Well, yeah, and it's like, come on, where is any evidence? Why is anybody taking that side seriously? I'm waiting for someone to. I mean, I'd like to hear it if there's a point to be made on that side. But me being new to mythicism, it seems like to me that people have just been had the wool pulled over their eyes for all these centuries.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Casper.
You know, it's just it's funny to deal with, because, you know, the Romans at the time were such great record keepers, and you figured there's going to be some sort of acknowledgement of this guy existing at the time, you know, and we get no outside scholars. You know, people want to point to Josephus, and you know, Josephus is questionable. whether his account is even his, much less whether it's based on a first-hand account. And certainly I don't see any evidence that it is based on a first-hand account. I think that, like the Gospels, it's a second or third-hand account at best.
Right.
And then you look at the Gospels and you compare everything, and you compare it to former myths that we know are myths, and you say, well, there's just too much there that is questionable for me to just accept that. So let's have some more outside evidence, and we can't find it.
Right.
For a culture that was so ingrained in record keeping, why is there no historical record outside of the Gospels? And that's the big question. That's the question we have to ask.
Right. And I think, unfortunately, we're in a kind of a catch-22, because when we're dealing, it depends on who you're debating, who you're talking to. Us as atheists, we can definitely debate the historicity question with Jesus, because we all we all understand and agree that Jesus, whether or not he existed, it doesn't really matter. And we don't believe in the supernatural version of Jesus. But when you're debating a theist, that becomes the issue, whether it's Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, whatever. When you're debating supernatural claims, it doesn't do us a solid to start debating whether or not these figures existed. It actually is better for us to debate the supernatural claims, like you said. So you see, like, Jesus walking on water, raising the dead, doing all these things. We can debate that. Those are big targets that we can go after, and we can state, okay, he did this, so did Romulus, so did Osiris, so did all of these other gods that came before. I think that's our best argument. I truly believe that the historicity argument is important. Some atheists will say it's not, but I do think it's important, because Jesus is that figurehead that fits into everything. He's in Islam, he's in Mormonism, he's in Christianity. I mean, he's everywhere. And if you can, kind of prove that that person didn't exist as a person, because that's the claim they have, it happened in history, and that's why theirs is the right one. But again, when we're debating theists, it's not really necessarily important to take it that far. Really, first start with the supernatural being, that in which case the stories don't even agree on. How did he die? What happened when he died? What did he do when he died? What did he do when all these things? Married? Was he not married? These are the things that we call the historicity then comes after, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, okay, and I just want to make a slight parallel here, because the latest attacks in Paris have shown yet another light on Islam. And it's an interesting thing, because you have to understand that Islam is based on Judaism and based on Christianity. And so if all the pieces don't fall into line correctly, then none of it works. I tried to make this point in my book, Holy Shit, The Insanity of Blind Faith, and the first volume deals with Christianity. The next volume coming out is going to deal with Islam. And when we deal with this, it comes back to historicity and whether these are truly acceptable viewpoints to take. And when you go back and you look at, like, Moses, and you look at Noah, and you ask yourself, well, where's the historical standing for these people actually existing? And you come to understand that,
Right.
like the Exodus, the entire basis of Judaism, the Exodus, that never historically happened. According to all the information we have from archaeology and history, that never happened. The Egyptians never enslaved Jews, and there was never a mass exodus of Jews from Egypt. And so how do you get from that point on to Jesus? Because Jesus himself was a literalist. I love to bring up that point. If Jesus existed at all, he was a literalist. He believed in Noah. He believed in Moses. So if we can say that these things didn't happen, and you're going to tell me this is the Son of God, how was he wrong? How was he wrong about what actually happened if he was supposedly the Son of God or God incarnate, and he didn't know better? How does that work?
Right.
It doesn't work.
You Exodus denier, you.
What was that, Rob?
Called him an Exodus denier.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and what happened in Paris is completely unfortunate. I think Rob and Brian did a great job of talking to it on our interview with Theremin Trees, but those atrocities are completely ridiculous, and it does, unfortunately, now it's forced people to have to start having that conversation on what is Islam, what is Christianity, how are they all connected. But a lot of the things that, for me, I think it boils down to education. Like, before we got into any of this 3 years ago, we didn't know. We were just as ignorant as everyone else. I didn't know Jesus was in Islam. I didn't know that the Quran, literally, it's not the word of Muhammad. It's actually the word of Gabriel. Gabriel, the imaginary angel that comes down and gives the word to Muhammad, and that's your Quran. I didn't know that Muhammad flew on a horse with a human head through 7 layers of heaven just to talk to Allah, and then have Moses tell him that the was coming back, because initially he was coming back with 50 daily prayers. Moses had to tell him like 7 times. That's way too many. And then he finally comes back with 5 prayers, and all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm not going to go back to Allah again. I didn't know any of these stories. I didn't know how Zoroastrianism influenced these concepts: the 7 heavens, the angels, the demons, hell, one God, dying and rising saviors, prophets. I mean, these all come from these ancient religions, and once you start to unravel that, once you start to figure that out, that these earlier concepts influence what you believe today, it takes away that magic. And magic's a bad word. It takes away that blind faith. It adds logic to what you are subscribing to. So it's just like any story. You have, like I always say, RoboCop Part 1 in the 80s looks a lot different than the RoboCop that they just released in 2015. It's or 14. It's the same character. It's the same kind of concept, but you have to update it. You have to change it. You take what you like from the first one, and you roll it into what you have today. That doesn't make it any realer. It's still mythology, but it just looks a little better. So I think, yeah, when you boil it down, people are killing people over Grimm's fairy tales at the end of the day,
Yeah, and I think that Arthur George and David Fitzgerald both did a great job at your last conference that I attended in speaking on the mythicist bent, and especially Arthur George when he went back into the Yahwehist and the way that things transformed, and the way that came from the earlier pagan mythologies, and that. Right. That sort of, it sheds a new light when you invest the time to study about it. You come to understand that it's not a solid viewpoint to take, and so it brings you to a new perspective. You have to question these things. You have to ask the question, and that's what people aren't doing. And I think that's why mythicism doesn't get the attention it deserves, because people aren't willing to question. They accept the Gospels as Bible truth, and it's not truth in any sense of the word when you can tie it to all these earlier constructs that it evolved from. Evolution is it affects ideas just as much as it affects genetics and biology. Things evolve, and religion has evolved. So when we look back on that, we see that sort of evolution, and that's where mythicists are at. We're looking at the evolution of religion, and we understand that evolution a little better than most people. So I think that's what we need to get the word out about.
We're never going to change the mind of people who take Genesis literally are certainly going to take the Jesus stories literally. They're certainly going to take the New Testament literally. I'm wondering why mythicism doesn't get more cred among historical scholars. Why is Jesus' historicity so popular amongst people who you would think, even if they're Christians, they'd be more progressive, more liberal Christians who could see it as a metaphor and don't really have an axe to grind in their research. But no, instead we have even a certain amount of atheists who still believe that there was probably a historical Jesus, and that's
Well,
just weird to me. You know?
and I think what David Fitzgerald, that's a good point, and that's actually where I'm focusing a lot of my time in my argument lately is because we'll say exactly what Rob just said. Why aren't more historians questioning the historicity of Jesus? Well, David Fitzgerald did a fantastic job researching this, and he must have spent a ton of time on this, but he covered it at the conference. So if you look at historians, historians definitely are questioning the historicity of Jesus, and actually more and more are these days. It's kind of like when kids and the Ten Commandments came on, the TV, and we had to watch it every year, whatever. Like, people thought that was historical. It wasn't until over time historians and archaeologists started disproving it, and then after a while, it was accepted as a myth. Like, that's the consensus today, but it wasn't always like that. But in this realm, what's happening is there are historians questioning it. More and more are questioning it. But if you look at the colleges, the schools that give diplomas, there's 4,700 schools in the U.S. that give out diplomas. Out of that, there's 1,700 that offer like a Jesus, New Testament, biblical, some form of degree. Out of those, 60%, so about 800, are religiously affiliated. So these people, professors, students, they have to sign a statement of faith that says, no matter what, at the end of the day, I'm going to believe Jesus was real, and I'm never going to challenge that. So anywhere from, he had in his book anywhere from 67 to 100% of those 800 religiously affiliated schools require that. And then he also pointed out that the 40% that are secular, non-religious, the Christians have their thumb on that. They control that. So again, if you come out and you speak out against and you start questioning these things, you lose your job. He has like 8 case studies in there of professors that came out one professor came out and challenged the raises the priests and they walk around town. You know that story where when Jesus dies, the priests get up and they walk into town. One of the professors just challenged that, saying that is myth. He lost his job. I mean, so another professor challenged some of the Old Testament prophets just for challenging that. His career was ruined. 20 years. He literally had to move out of the country in order to continue his career as a historian. So Rob, when atheists come and ask you, why aren't more historians challenging this? Because when they do, their careers get destroyed, they lose their job, and they have no chance of doing what they love, and that's sad. I mean, it's bullying at its.
It's sad for them, and it's sad for all of us. It's sad for the fact that the truth is buried because of that kind of. Idiot pressure is bad enough for one guy and his family, but then the rest of us have to suffer for a lack of knowledge. That's right there to be handed down. It's all of our. It's all of our right. They
literally are being bullied. Right, they're being bullied and saying, look, if you say this or if you challenge that, guess what? You don't have a career in this field anymore. And that's, kudos to David Fitzgerald. That's his book, Jesus, Mything in Action. Kudos on that. It's not out yet. It's coming out soon. But that is a really good. I'm glad he did that. That was amazing.
Oh yeah, and definitely, I'm glad that you touched on that because, Fitzgerald he brought up some great points in that conference and when he talked, and it was just one of those eye openers for most of us. Like, why isn't there more secular schools that offer these degrees to people who are willing to question the reality of it, and I think that's somewhere that we can look to advance the not necessarily the agenda, but the idea of questioning. It's not necessarily accepting one viewpoint over another. It's a question of whether we're willing to question the reality of the situation. And there needs to be more secular schools that are willing to offer those degrees and to say we want people who are willing to question it. Are you willing to ask the hard questions? And we're not going to put your job on the line. Ask the question, and look
Right.
at the evidence and tell us what you have, and that's important. When we look at what happened in Paris, okay, this is a horrible tragedy, and of course we don't want to capitalize on that, but at the same time, if there were more people willing to accept a mythicist position
Right.
of maybe this is all based on earlier ideas, that maybe people would move away from this fundamentalism. And of course, fundamentalism is the problem.
Right.
That's the problem we're dealing with Islam, with Christianity. It doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter what type. Of course, we see more violence from Islam, and honestly, I believe that's just a 500-year difference between the religions coming into being. But that's a personal viewpoint.
I've heard
If we
that.
look at
I've
that,
heard that a couple times now. I've heard that, the 4 or 5 centuries that Islam is newer than the other religions. That's almost why they're kind of behind the curve as far as what moderation is. But I think, unfortunately, I think that's wrong, because one of the baseline tenets and ideals of Islam is that you cannot challenge the word of the Quran, it's infallible, or the word of Allah. So it doesn't matter. They can have 10, they could be 1,000 years ahead of Christianity. When you have that as your baseline, number one fundamental rule, guess what that does to the skeptics, the people asking questions. I mean, I'm not saying Christianity or Judaism were any better in the Dark Ages and things like that, but they're through society's able to influence them. I mean, as we've seen over and over in the Catholic Church, them changing doctrine to match what's happening in the time, such as Mary ascending to heaven in the 50s when the women's rights movements were happening, empowering women and things like that. I mean, all of these different things, they start changing, and it will take place soon. The Catholic Church will change its doctrine on gay marriage. It just has to in order to survive. That's what's going to be the next step. But yeah, in Islam, you have this fundamental rule that you can't question the word, or the word in the book, or the word of the God. So that shuts it down right there. I mean, where do you go from there?
Fundamentalist Christians have that too, though, Sean. And it's not maybe as violent as it is in the Quran, but fundamentalist Christians have that same shutdown mentality. It's a larger geopolitical question than the simple arc of a religion that was 500 years earlier. The fact that Islam at one point made advances that the Dark Age Christians could only dream of, and then kind of had that rug pulled out from under them. That feeds into
Right.
it too.
Mm-hmm.
They're by and large a third world religion, and all they see is what they could have that had been taken away from them by infidels, and that's a huge part of it. So it's a little more complicated, I think, than that.
yeah,
Well, but that's
just
part
know,
of it. Even moderate Muslims have to follow that rule. That's all I'm saying.
That's part of it too. There's no doubt.
well, that's actually a funny thing, because our founder, Armin Navabi, he's a former atheist, and a very wonderful man. He's done some wonderful things with Atheist Republic. I can't possibly speak enough good about this man. I love him to death. But he's
a former Muslim, right?
Former Muslim, you
mentioned. Yes. And,
yeah, because you
and
just said former atheist. I thought something changed.
yes.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
His understanding of Islam has helped me to understand Islam a lot better, and he's actually pointed out that within Islam there is the ability for change. There is the ability that there could be another prophet beyond Muhammad, and when you point that out, you say, well, let's just have some Muslim that's willing to stand up and say, okay, well, Allah has revealed this to me, and this is where we need to go from here on, and that's what Allah has revealed. Right. And Islam could change, but there's no Muslim willing to stand up for that, and that seems to be a real problem within the
Well,
Islamic community. Like, why isn't anybody willing to
well,
force
but
reformation? You know?
but see, you got there. You know, here's the thing: there are people out there that are trying to do it. You know, and obviously now in the U.S. and the U.K. and you know the Western society, that it's easier to challenge things. We can start having those conversations. Unfortunately, you know, in the Middle East and in you know the Muslim countries, it's hard to ask those questions because you know not only are you fearing you know losing your community, your friends, your family, you're fearing in some cases in losing your life, and that's tough. I mean, I don't you know I like to bring up Salman Rushdie when he wrote his demonic verses in the Quran. It's essentially the teachings of Muhammad when he was essentially inhabited by an evil spirit. Now these are this was part of the Quran, but it was one of those where it's like don't ask, don't tell, and he ended up writing a book on it explaining you know what these verses actually were, and what happened. I mean, he had to have bodyguards around him 24/7. Now, don't get me wrong, this is decades ago, and we've come a long way. But how many stories have you seen in various countries? I mean, you guys work with the Bangladesh bloggers. You know about that. I mean, when in some
Yeah.
in you know, and I'm not just saying Islam. I'm not. I mean, I understand that there's fundamentalist religions out there that doesn't matter where you're at, they may kill you for what you're doing, but that's part of the problem. It's hard for people to come out because you know, even if you're dealing in the U.S., it's hard for people to come out as an atheist because they're afraid they're going to lose their friends, their families, they're going to be viewed as negative at their workplaces and things like that. Just imagine now if you're part of a fundamentalist religion or even a moderate fundamentalist, you know, situation. How does that look on you? You know?
Hmm. Yeah, well, you know, being from the South and being from Tennessee, and you know, this is the
Yeah.
birthplace of the KKK, you
Yeah.
know, and I worry quite often about my safety and the safety of my family because of the Klan. And you know, a lot of
Yeah.
people look at that and they're like, oh, well, you know, it's the Klan, that's a terrorist organization. Well, no, in the United
Right.
States, they are protected by religious freedom because they're a religious group. You
Yeah.
know, that's a Christian organization, and
Yeah.
you know, I do potentially face you know some sort of backlash from them. You know, and
Right.
I do worry about that. I have to.
Right.
And so
Right.
yeah, of course it's not just Islam. Um,
Right.
but you know, and the Paris attacks, it sheds a new light on things
Right.
for a lot of people that we haven't addressed since 9/11. You know, which is what happens when fundamentalism decides to shed its skin and show its ugly face. What
Right.
happens when that fundamentalism shows up? And that's why mythicism is important.
Right.
That's why we have to say, look, you can believe in a God, and you can even potentially believe in Jesus, but to believe
Right.
this as factual truth is wrong.
Right.
That's where you have to understand that there needs to be some reformation, and Christianity tends to have done that better than Islam has so far. And I think that's where we get back to that sort of 400 or 500 year difference between Christianity and
Well,
Islam
I
is
just
that.
yeah. Well, I'll just say to this though, and I'll just you know I understand what you're saying, and it definitely isn't as big of a problem in Christianity, but um, I actually went to see Ken Ham speak last night in Wisconsin. That was interesting. And there was so we were inside of a church, you know, we're the atheist group, and we're inside of this church just to listen to this buffoon speak for over an hour. And he's up there, he's got a church, 600 plus people in the church. And, you know, I agree with everything you're saying. Christianity has made strides. But there's 600 plus people in this audience that were nodding their heads and laughing at his jokes when he was making comments such as same-sex couples are going to be why God comes back and kills everyone. The reason why the apocalypse is happening is because we're allowing gay marriages. And it was just, you know, bigotry after hate-mongering after bigoted comment. over and over and over. And for those that don't know, in Brookfield, Wisconsin's where the money's at in Wisconsin. And so you have all of these well-to-do, well-off people that are quote-unquote Christian, very Christian, sitting in there laughing and joking, and I mean, I understand Islam has its problems, but all of them at the same time have their problems. And unfortunately, Christianity kind of happens right under our noses. Being in the Bible Belt, if you have somebody coming in for a job, one's a Christian and one might be an open atheist, who might get the position? I mean, that's obviously a scenario that may or may not play out. It should be illegal, but it happens. I mean, they just have the different ways of criticizing. It's just
Yeah.
That was really hard. Ken Ham, by the way, asshole, huge asshole. I don't care. This goes out to everyone. He was in there literally gloating about how much wood that he's destroyed to build this ark of his, and it was essentially a sales pitch. And the project's like what was it? It was around $100 million. It's like just above $100 million to build this ark out there, and the amount of natural resources they're wasting to build it. It was just terrible. The whole experience was terrible.
Yeah, my buddy Dan Errol attended one of his speeches as well, and he just wrote a scathing review about that. And love Dan Errol to death. He's a great author and has written some great works and does some great work with the Friendly Atheist blog. But oh my God, yeah, his review of that was just so scathing. And of course, Ken Ham, like you said, huge asshole, didn't even take questions.
Didn't
even take questions. I mean, come on, man.
Right.
Look, I'll be sharing the links to you guys' last conference there, and as everybody can see if they watch those links, the people involved in those conferences openly took questions from all the members, all the people there.
Right.
I asked questions to every one of the speakers there, and they were very open and honest with me, and gave some great insight. And you look at people like Ken Ham, and you're like, why aren't you taking questions? And it's we look back at his debate with Bill Nye, and it's like, yeah, you're a jackass, man.
Right.
That's your position.
Right. That's essentially what his position was. If I summarized it, it was that I'm a jackass and I want your money. That's the summary of what I witnessed last night. But I mean, going back to Islam, and I think one of the conversations we've been having internally in our group, if let's say the shoe was on the other foot, and we had an atheist group out in Paris that did these atrocities, the atheist groups, people, personalities, spokespeople, they would be out there rallying. They'd be out there saying we condone this, or we don't condone this. This is a terrible atrocity.
We condemn it.
We condemn it, and there'd be a rally. There'd be constantly. We'd take over. The internet would probably break because we would just be on there. Right. So when it comes to the Muslims, we see statements that the Muslims are stating that's not our religion. We're against. But when I see that, it's like a broad stroke of the paintbrush. What Muslims? You're just saying Muslims? Who's standing out and coming out and saying, no, this isn't my religion. This is not what we stand for. This is completely unacceptable. I'm so-and-so, John Doe. This is my name. Where's the rally? Where's people out in Paris, helping the people that were affected? I mean, I think that's the difference in the situation, and I think that's what we need to see, personally.
Oh yeah.
What we need to see is more real
agree.
education, Casper. We need education is the fight against fundamentalism. We're not going to get to the people who are already dyed-in-the-wool, idiot, adult, mind-blown religions who aren't going to change. We need to get to the younger ones who still have a little critical thinking left, and get to them with this actual research, the truths of ancient philosophies, the truths of ancient it's anthropology, really. I like to say it. It's just social anthropology. It's how did these cultures worship? How did these cultures view their world and where it came from? And everybody has a right to know, just like we all have a right to know where the pyramids came from and the things we can put our hands on that everybody understands is real. All these kids need to know that stuff, and that's where mythicism is important. That's what mythicism is bringing to the table is actual research, a search for the truth that everybody can get behind, religious people and non-religious people. Everybody who's interested in this can get their head around why it's important. And what if one day, it's a pipe dream, but what if one day these researchers and mythicists could uncover like the root myth? What if they found the first myth that started it all? They all like a family tree and they all branched out from there. How unifying would that be worldwide?
Right. Yeah, and you know, I wrote a blog called "How to Kill a God," and I dealt with it within the Catholic Bible. There's a story from the Book of Daniel called "Bel and the Dragon." That story is not included in the Protestant version of the Bible, and the reason is because what Daniel does, and a lot of people don't know this, why he was put in the lion's den, supposedly, according to the Bible, was because he disproved the existence of the gods that the king was worshiping at the time. He disproved them through forensic science. And you know, we look at that and we say, why isn't that in the Protestant Bible? And the reason is, if you're given an actual diagram to how to dismantle a god and prove it false, that destroys your god. You know, it comes down to that. Forensic science can disprove a god, you know, based on what that god supposedly did. And if that god didn't supposedly do it, then that God is false. You know, if that God wasn't actually eating the food that you left for it, that God is false. And Daniel proved that within that book, and it's left out of the Protestant Bible. It's still included in the Catholic Bible, and you have to wonder why that is. And of course, you don't want people understanding that sort of idea.
Right. That's right. I think history itself does that as well. I mean, you know, one of the things that Arthur George talks about, and I suggest anyone out there get his book. What's his book called?
The Mythology of Eden.
Escaping me now. The Mythology of Eden.
Yeah.
The Mythology of Eden. It's brilliant because he points out. Yeah, I you're right. It's the Mythology of Eden. It points out, and this is not just him saying this. There's many archaeologists that have proven this, that the God concept, Yahweh, that is in the Old Testament, actually had a wife early on in the Scripture, and that wife, that consort, came over from the Canaanite religion, and that's one of the things the other people, you know, that other scholars have pointed out, and that people don't understand, is that it wasn't that the Israelites were murdering the Canaanites. It's that the Canaanites and the Israelites were merging as a people. And so what did they start doing? They started merging their myths as a people in order to have that sense of unity, that sense of I'm not any better than you. Now in the Bible it points out that you know, the Israelites are destroying the Canaanites, but in reality they're coming together, and the god El, who predates Yahweh, who is the God of gods, the Lord of lords, his wife Asherah actually gets married into Yahweh's story, and there's tablets that prove this. I mean, this is not one crazy person saying this. There's tablets that show Yahweh being married to a woman, to a goddess, and you know, how liberating is that for all of it? Just to understand that, because another thing that people understand is the goddess concept itself was like more important in a lot of regions. You have the cult of Isis in Egypt. That was huge. I mean, the goddess figure was huge because people didn't know where life came from. They knew that women, you know, harnessed that power, and women were, you know, held in that high esteem. It wasn't until you get to the Judeo-Christian later periods that whole thing goes away and they destroy that whole concept, and then men take over. It becomes very misogynistic. So it's education, you know, history.
I think Arthur George made some great points in his presentation, and unfortunately, it wasn't quite as engaging as possibly Fitzgerald's
Yeah,
presentation was, and some people may have been lost because it wasn't quite as engaging. It was to the point, um,
yeah,
but those points are important. Those
right,
points are what we need to understand, and he made some wonderful points there, and I
right.
loved hearing him speak, and definitely I have not yet read his book, but I definitely it's on my list of things to read once I get done publishing our own books here on Atheist Republic. So
Right, first things first. Yeah, but that's yeah, definitely was he definitely, you can YouTube it for those that want to listen to it. He definitely talks at a very high level. You have to understand a lot of the concepts in the Old Testament and where it comes from, and how the other regions do influence it. And I love how he went into Egyptology. I mean, that was huge. That's one of the things when I was over in Egypt in 2013. We're in Cairo. A lot of the guides like to talk to the foundations of Christianity, even though they were devout Muslims, because again, they can't see it in the same scope. They think Islam's different than Christianity when they're like brother and sister. They really are really close to one another. But yeah, they would tell us. They would say, "Well, this is where the concept of the Trinity comes from," or this is where this idea comes from. And it's really Egypt that was influencing a lot of what the Judeo-Christian concepts ended up becoming. Egypt, and then also Persia. Persia was huge too. So you have to understand your history in order to know what you believe today.
I love it. Rob is showing us his drink there. He's having a drink with us, and that's wonderful. It's one of those things that we like to do here in Devils is lubricate folks and let us be a little more honest and a little more open about our position. So,
Sean and
great
I
to
don't
see
have that
Rob
problem,
sharing a drink
man.
with us.
Yeah, Rob
Yeah,
and I are
we
together long enough throughout the week.
yeah, we all shared a few drinks in my visit up there, and I can't wait to see you guys again. It was a wonderful experience, and to see those people talk that you guys had there. It was just it was amazing. And in fact, that was my first conference, and for me, that was just that was where I want to be
That's
personally.
awesome.
I
Yeah, we
love
loved
the
having you,
position.
man. You're just hanging out. You were just so awesome. It was really fun. You got to see David Fitzgerald do his utilize his acting skills a little bit for the holy shit video. It was pretty
Yeah, I
so
can't talk enough about that video series. Holy shit. It's a great video series put out by the Mythicist Milwaukee guys here, Sean and Rob and Anthony. Um, they put together a great show here, and all these guys involved with the Mythicist Milwaukee are a great team, and we love having them on here at Atheist Republic. It's just it's wonderful to speak with you guys and to hear what you guys have to say, especially for myself as a mythicist. Um,
that's awesome. Well, we love having you. And one of the things we're trying to build in, I talked to Allie about potentially presenting at the Bart Ehrman Price debate. What we're going to do with that event is we're going to have that be a highlight of a conference because we want to hold a conference in 2016, and that's definitely taking up all of our funds and all of our time to plan. It's going to be at a gorgeous historic venue in Milwaukee. Seats over 500. So talking to Allie about having her present on the front end in the conference part. So yeah, it's she sounds like she's interested. Hopefully we can make that happen. Because I love hearing from her. As obviously as you guys know, we met Allie first, and she came on the show and just was just so well spoken. I mean, we just loved her immediately, and then we got to meet you. It was just awesome. You didn't know any of us, and you just got on a bus and came out to Milwaukee, which is like really awesome. And it was really fun. So yeah, next time in October 2016, if we can get you guys out there, it's going to be a blast.
yeah,
The whole ride we've been
yeah,
taking has been amazing, man. We've all got on this little train, and it's kind of taken us places that I didn't think we'd get to so fast. So the whole thing's just been fantastic. It's cool to meet all the people, go through some of the bad things together, and come out the other side.
Right.
And,
Right.
Oh,
Right.
sorry, folks.
Gotta-
That's an inside joke. The three of us know about that joke.
You got to go through some of the
Some,
bad to get to the good, right?
that's what I mean,
yeah,
man. It's
some of
just
the others
experience.
missed that one. But yeah, Allie is just she's such a great figure, and it's such a great wonderful experience to have her come on as the CEO of the new Atheist Republic U.S. branch. It's so amazing to have to present a woman
Right.
as the face of Atheist Republic, and that's so amazing for us because women get downplayed in atheism so much, and we want to say, look, this is one of our great leaders, and this is a woman, and it's not a boys' club. It's not.
It really isn't.
We do not. Yeah, we do not pander to that misogynistic idea as
Right.
much as some people want to present that idea out there. We'll leave that person unnamed at the moment. Falls back on that inside joke,
You
but
know what?
yeah,
Yeah.
We've talked to
Yeah.
so many strong women in leadership positions on the podcast. Every time you turn around, there's another woman in charge or out front being an activist. Julie Kaloff, and then Robin Blumner, and I mean the list goes on and on. We Carolyn Hippolyte there in Canada, and Mandisa. So I don't
Right.
see it personally. Obviously sexism's
Yeah.
everywhere, but
yeah,
Sexism's everywhere, but yeah, I think, and that's the nice thing about our two organizations. We don't tolerate any of that. We don't tolerate unprofessionalism. We don't tolerate any sexism. We don't tolerate, anything that kind of breaks up that group dynamic. And Allie, yeah, she's a woman, but she is also one of the most positive, energetic, intelligent voices that I've heard. And we've done what, Rob, like frickin' 60 shows or something now? Or I mean, like we've been doing it for like 3 years. I mean, just having her come on. There's not one person that hasn't listened to that interview, my wife included, who doesn't get in any of this, that listens to her and is just like, yeah, I want to listen to her talk more. Where can I listen to her? So.
Very
It's just
impressive.
really, really, really awesome. And I think,
Yeah.
and I think what you're doing, Casper, with atheism and mythicism, that's where this needs to go. There needs to be an acceptance of, because take away the word mythicism and just implant ancient history education. I mean that's all it is. I mean we're looking at the history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theological
And
anthropology.
one of the reasons I wanted to do this show with Allie, and I miss her being here so much, is because Allie is such a bright and enthusiastic figure. She has a way of getting to people. Right now we don't have the viewership that we normally have, and I think that has a lot to do with Allie not being here. She's such a beautiful person, and people will come back and watch this and they will see that we love Allie to death, and she is a figurehead for us.
True.
I support Allie in everything that she does, and I love her to death, and she's brought Atheist Republic into such a new frame of light that is just refreshing and so amazing. I miss her so much not being here.
Right. But I think, the other thing, too, that can't be downplayed is just what you guys have done. I mean, all the initiatives that you're working on. I mean, when you tell somebody you guys have over 1 million, there's like 1.2 million likes on Facebook, I mean, that alone, it's like, what? We just surpassed 4,000,
Countries
so, I mean,
that don't have that many people.
Exactly right. So it's, what you guys have done and what you keep doing, it's incredible. And I know Amin Navabi, that he started it, and you guys are taking it over, and I think with your guys' knowledge, you guys are just going to take it in a great direction. So kudos to you guys. That's really awesome.
Well, we definitely appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it, and all the support we've gotten from you guys has just been phenomenal. Um, I know that you contacted us first, and had Allie on your podcast, and that's so amazing. We appreciate it so much. We're just getting this Devils thing off the ground, and we're wanting to start a podcast and other things. But to have the support of even what you consider a small group of people is just so amazing for us, because Atheist Republic is considered a community. That's what we stand for. A community of atheists to come together, and whether we all agree or disagree on certain points, that's fine. But we
Right.
want to have an open community available for every atheist out there. Come and join us. If you want your voice to be heard, come join the Atheist Republic crew. We will make sure
Right.
that your voice is heard. We put Allie on the forefront. They've put people like me on the forefront, which is that's humbling to me personally, because I'm very outspoken. I really am. And to have you guys embrace me, and to have Atheist Republic embrace me, is so important to me, because it's a viewpoint that not a lot of people are going to really want to gravitate towards, and yet you understand that it's important. It's important to have those voices out there. So
Right. No,
I'll
it's
let
great.
I'll let Rob and then Sean wrap up for us. We're approaching the 1 hour mark, and I don't want to go too much over
Sure.
for viewership reasons. But yeah, Rob, go ahead and give us whatever final thoughts you have, and then we'll let Sean speak, and I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, man, thanks for having us on tonight. It's been a mutual slap on the back fest here these last few minutes, but I want to impress upon
Everyone's tuned
everybody
out at
that
this point.
that's all right. No, the movement where we are is alive and well, thanks mostly to that man's work right there, and those of us who try to run to keep up with Sean's energy. And but literally, it's Mythicist Milwaukee is just the leader of a group of groups, an active alliance that meets every Sunday, and everybody simultaneously does their own thing and works together to forward our community, to do everything that you're talking about and that we're talking about tonight, to educating people, to providing a sense of community for people who don't have one, to give back to the community in terms of community service, and basically just to move the entire secular movement forward. So look for us this year, and come out and check out the debates and the conferences and the podcast every week. Go, Sean.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rob. Thanks for those kind words. Obviously you've been with us since the beginning, and obviously if there's, I see you as my counterpart, if not putting in more time. One of the things, we started when we started seeing this information, we started figuring out that what we feel is religion today actually is mythology, and kind of going back to the point of Paris and everything else. Nobody's killing over Zeus anymore. Nobody's killing over Osiris or Mithras or any of these other gods that have gone into the mythological realms. We're just trying to get that information out there that, look, you guys are fighting and killing and ostracizing people and kicking them out of their communities over something that's not real. And this is why, and we started, it was just 2 of us 3 years ago, and for those out there, whether it's an atheist group or whatever, Mythicist group or whatever you want to start, if you're interested in doing it, my advice is just do it. But when you do it, you got to understand, you start off small. You have 2 people, like we had Antonio and I, we sat in a frickin' Starbucks for 6-7 months straight. Nobody showed up. It's just me and him sitting there, but you just keep doing it. You put your nose to the ground. You keep doing it. And eventually you will find the people that are interested. And our team's up to 14 people, and we have strong leaders like Rob that bring many years of skills from various realms like broadcasting and different things like that to the table. And we can utilize this and start building. And you just keep going. And if you really want to make change, you keep going. And it's really important. And like Rob said, it's, we literally meet every Sunday. We spend 4 hours together every Sunday going over initiatives, going over the marketing, going over different things. So but it's something that matters to us, and I think Paris is another reason why it matters and why it should matter. And I will call out this guy that Godless Engineer had on. His name is Neil Carter, and you can put this in the comments because this guy really irritated me. He's an atheist that was using Christian arguments against Godless Engineer, and he's going to sit there and say that it only matters what the historians and the scholars think about this topic, and I disagree wholeheartedly. I think it needs to start from the grassroots. I think just regular people that are interested in it, they can make real change, and that's what we continue to strive to do. So I mean, we got big things coming up. Check out Batman and Jesus. It's going to be out in 2016. It's going to be awesome. Our debate series, our conferences, our weekly podcasts, all that fun stuff.
All right, guys. I really appreciate having both of you on tonight. It's been so great talking with you guys, and I will share links to everything we've discussed here. The Batman and Jesus little mini movie or whatever that's coming out.
Well, we don't have the trailer yet, but I can give you the website. It's not out
yet. Yes. Yeah. And definitely for those who want to support what Mythicist Milwaukee is doing, we will definitely share your website and share your Facebook page here in this video, and we'll share that on Atheist Republic. We want to get the word out. Yeah, we definitely want to get the word out about this because it's an important topic. And when you understand the Mythicist position, you understand the atheist position a lot better. And I think more atheists should appreciate the Mythicist position. So it's definitely something that we want to talk about. If you'd like to join the Atheist Republic organization, please visit the link below to volunteer if you want to have your word heard. We accept blogging submissions. We need news writers. We need people to just get their viewpoint out there. So we want everybody within the atheist community to join up with us and to get involved. If you're in the Milwaukee area and you're looking for a secular organization to join and to be a part of, Mythicist Milwaukee is the place to go. There is no other place that is doing more or doing better work than these guys. Great to have them on. Sean and Rob always love to talk to you guys, and I actually I believe I'll be speaking on the Mythicist Milwaukee podcast here shortly, later this month, and that will be a wonderful experience, and have everybody tune into that and check it out. And like I said, if you're in the Milwaukee area, definitely check these guys out. Everything that we do here on Atheist Republic is not free. We want you to realize that. So we could definitely use a little bit of monetary support. If you could contribute $1 or $3 a month, we would love to have that support. These interactions are not free. As much as we'd like them to be, they're not free, and our time is not necessarily free. So if you can offer a bit of your time, more importantly than anything else, if you can offer your time, we would love to have it. If you can offer your money, we would love to have that too. We accept Patreon distributions. Anytime you're willing to join as a Patreon, we would love to have you. And you'll get some exclusive benefits from that. We're working on getting that worked up to where you'll get some exclusive benefits from that. So please support the Atheist Republic in any way you can. Please support Mythicist Milwaukee. We're working with these guys as closely as we can be because they're doing some great work out there. And the Mythicist position is definitely something that I am very involved in and very devoted to myself. And always remember that the viewpoints and opinions expressed here on the Devils in God's Country do not necessarily represent the viewpoints and opinions of all members of Atheist Republic. We are nearly 300 strong, and we do have differing viewpoints, so you're not going to get the same thing from every person, that's for sure. Thank you for joining us on the Devils in God's Country. I'm sorry I'm a little wasted right now. That's what we do here. But we are glad to have those who viewed us live, and we are just enjoying all the people who are enjoying this podcast and this video series. So please join us next week. Hopefully Allie will be back to banter back and forth with me about crazy shit, and we'll get a little wasted and we'll talk about some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining. This has been the Devils in God's Country, signing off.